Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm just going to check my microphone. Yeah, it is switched on. Sorry about that, I do forget to switch it on sometimes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a programme of wildflowers, because according to a friend of mine who does a lot of wedding cakes, wildflowers are very popular at the moment for cakes. So to start off with, I'm going to start off with something that's tricky. You might not want to do this because there's a lot of work involved in it, considering how small it is. I'm going to do some lavender, and I'm going to show you 2 or 3 different kinds of lavender, because there are different varieties. So I'll take you down to my board. So here I've got one that I made earlier. And here, this is a bit dry now. This is a piece of lavender I took out of the garden, which is I wouldn't say a common lavender, because as I say, there are a lot of different kinds, but probably one of the most recognisable types of lavender. The one thing that I couldn't find was some French lavender. Now I have actually made one, and I've just realised I've just squashed it. I've actually made one up here, but the petals are still soft on this because it's still fresh. This is the French lavender, which has the little petals sticking up at the top. If I just adjust that round that way, so I haven't got any of this to show you because it had all dried off in the garden, so I couldn't take any on. We've been towards the end of October now. It's all died back as that, so I'm just going to pop that over there. So some of the lavender grows like this with all the lavender at the top, and some of it grows with sort of rows of lavender down the stem. So I'm going to put together a couple of different ones in those and show you how I did the French lavender. So I'll just get rid of that out of the way. We'll get rid of that one. This is good practice for learning how to get things small, and when I mean tiny, I mean tiny. You saw how small the actual lavender was at the side of mine. Mine's a little bit bigger than the real thing, but I mean, if you put it into an arrangement, nobody would be able to, would know the difference unless you put some fresh lavender at the side of it. So what I've done is I've coloured some flower paste purple here. I'm using 2 shades. I'm using a lighter shade for the French lavender and the darker shade for the normal lavender. So what we need to do is we need some very thin wires. So here I've got some 32 gauge wire that I've cut into very short lengths. You don't need long lengths for this, they need to be very short. My paste is quite sticky, so I'm not going to use any glue, but if your paste is not sticky and you find leaves and petals are coming off of wires, then glue the wires. I'm not going to do that because I don't need to with this paste. This is my egg-free paste, which is in my recipe on my channel. Right, so we're going to start off with a tiny ball of paste, whoops, about the size of a druggie. I don't know whether you can see that, and I'll lift that up to the camera. That is tiny. I'm just trying to think of something that I could put at the side of it. If you put a small cutter at the side of it, you can see how tiny that is at the side of the cutter. Right, so what we need to do with that now is we need to get that onto the wire. So if you get your wire, pop that into the centre of your ball of paste, like that. Turn it up, and then between your 2 first fingers, roll it, like that. So you're basically doing an upside down cone, so you want it to be a bit thicker at the top and thinner underneath, like that sort of shape. So if you can see that. Right, you need a load of those. I couldn't tell you how many there are on a... Let me just have a look at that flower and see if I can find out how many I've used on there. I've used about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've used about 5 buds round each layer, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one on the top. So about 6 layers on that. And then there also, you see here and there, you see little flowers on the lavender as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I've shown you how to make the bud, so you need a lot of these. Then we'll do another one. Again, tiny ball of paste. Onto your wire. This is going to be quite a quick video because I'm not going to sit and do all the bits and pieces for it. Putting it together will take longer. Do the same thing again with that. Then we need to get some of this paste. I'm only going to use a tiny bit here. Roll that out. Oops. And cut out one of the little blossoms in the plunger cutter. Get rid of that out of the way. Now what I want to do now is I want to put this onto my mat. Oops. There we are. That's in the edges. Now this is not going to be botanically correct because when I looked at my lavender, when I picked this the other day, the flowers were open. They've dried off now, so you can't see them. They have actually got 5 petals, but this has got 6 petals on it. But I mean, unless people know a lot about flowers and are looking very closely at it, they're not going to pick you up on that. At least they shouldn't anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin each of these petals, and I'm using a small cell stick here. If you haven't got one of these, then if you've got there's lots of different ones on the market, but I mean if you haven't got those, then a cocktail stick will do. The only trouble with a cocktail stick is because it's wood, it tends to make your fingers quite sore, whereas these are a little bit more comfortable to use. You've just got to be very patient with this. There we are, that's thrilled up. So what I'm going to do with that now is, I've just put my cell stick down. What have I done with it? There it is. And then I'm just going to go into the centre of it using the rounded edge just to cup it up a little bit like that. And then if you get your bud that you're going to put that onto, squash that a little bit, so we'll just reshape that. Get some of your glue just on the tip of that there. And what I do is, to pick it up, I've got my brush here from the glue, and I'm just going to get the rounded edge of the brush just to put a bit of glue on there, just so I can pick this up. It's stuck to my mat there, so I'll just, there we are. Then pop that in the centre onto your bud, like that. Then if you just gently push down in the centre, and then just re-roll that underneath, just curled a petal down there. Just redo that. There we are. And re-roll that underneath. And then just put that to one side to dry. So that's going to go into the foam to dry. Right, now then for the French lavender, I'm going to get a lighter shade of the lilac paste. I'm going to do all these bits and pieces before I start putting things together, then that'll make things easier, for me anyway. So I'm going to start off with a small ball of paste. If I make a sample of each of the things that I'm doing, I'm just going to do one of each like I usually do, and then you can take your time making all the bits and pieces as you want under your own steam. I've got a 24 gauge wire here, which I've cut into 3. Put a hook on the end of it. No, that's not the one. I already had some with hooks on. That's one there. There we are. This might be a bit big. I'm just going to take a bit of paste off of there. You want to probably be about the size of a Malteser for this. Wire into the centre of your paste and then pull down so the hook disappears into the bottom of the paste. Then start to shape it like you would a cone for the centre of a rose. You don't need to go to too much of a point because there are little petals that go on the top of this, but just shape it so you've got a bit of a shape like that. Turn it over, and then you want some small scissors, which I have got here somewhere when I find where I've put them. I just put all my things away before I came on and I can't see where I've put my scissors now. I know they're in there somewhere. Oh, there they are, they're on top. Now I'm using the curved scissors. If you can get hold of these come in handy. And what I'm doing, I'm turning it over so the curve is downwards, like that, not up, down. And start right at the very base and go around and clip in. Just fine little pieces, like that. And then go in between and go around again and do another layer. And just go around, keep doing that until you get to the top. So we're going on in between where your previous layer was. Now when you get near to the top, you don't need to go right to the top because we need to leave a bit at the top there for your petals to go into. So I'm just going to pop that to one side while I do the petals. Oop, that one's flopped again. Unfortunately I did these before I came online, so nothing's had time to dry. If I turn it that way up and then they can drop back a bit. Right, so I'm just going to roll out a small piece of paste because I'm only going to do one. Now I couldn't find a cutter that I was happy with to do this, but I have one of these. They come in the sets where you've got the double veiners. If I can find one, I'll show you one. I have a bag full of all different shapes of these sort of things. These sort of veiners that you get that come with cutters to go in them. So it was in one of the sets that I got with those. So if you have a look online and see if you can find ones that have got all different shapes in, then they come in handy for jobs like this. So we'll cut that out. Buy me a cell stick. Just pull that paste out of that. There we are. So I'm going to put that onto my tool pad. Now for this next bit you need the smallest ball tool. If you've got these metal ones that come in sets of 3, we're going to use the smallest end, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to stretch this paste out a little bit because it wants to go to more of a point rather than a round. So I'm just going to stretch that out. So don't roll your paste too thin for this because you need to be able to stretch it. And then when you thin your edges, then you go around and up to the point like that. This is quite sticky, so it's sticking to my pad as well. Go around like that and up. So you basically keep getting 4 ears. There's just 4 petals on the top of this particular flower. So we'll get the cone back again, and then what I need to do with the top of that. Now what I did before, and I would suggest you do this before you put this on, I'm doing this in real time, so I'm doing it faster than I would normally do. I would leave this to set a bit in on your bobble foam or something like that, so it's cupped up before you put it on, and let it set a bit before you put it on so it stays in shape. Otherwise it'll be doing what mine's done over there. So again, I'll just turn that back over again, leave my brush there. If I get my little ball tool there, get the end into the centre just to pick that up. Don't know, it's not going to do it, is it? Just lay that on top of there like that, and push that down into the centre like that, and then you need those petals to come up like that. Now if I'd let that set a bit, those would stay in place, but that's what you're aiming for. Sorry, I'm going off a camera there. I'll start that again. To get you want your petals to go up like that. So if you can get your petals to dry before you put them onto your pad, then that would be more useful. So that's going to flop down. So I'm going to put that upside down into some foam and leave that to dry. Now then, while I've got my thin wires there, I'm going to show you the leaves. Now the leaves are very thin on where is it? Oh, there they are. The leaves are very thin on our flowers, so I'm using a fairly lightish coloured green, sort of like a, not too light but not too dark, because the leaves are actually quite sort of bit of a grey greeny look, if you know what I mean, a bit like eucalyptus. I've got two eucalyptus powders. I've got a dark eucalyptus and eucalyptus. The dark eucalyptus is a bit more green, which I've got, I've just put it back somewhere here when I find what I've done with it. To show you the show you the colour that I've used to dust them with. I'll find it in a bit anyway. I've just put a load of stuff away, so I've probably mixed it in with something else. So what I'm not going to roll that. I'm getting ahead of myself here today. I'm having one of those days. It's one of those days where you need to stop and start again. So small piece of paste like we did before. Just get rid of that bud out of the way. Put that up there with the others. Now for the leaves on the French lavender, they're really, really tiny and there's lots of them. So you need to start off with a small piece of paste, roll it into the sausage, get your wire down the centre of your paste, a little bit out of the end, onto your board, and then roll it down your wire. And this needs to be really thin because they are very thin leaves. This is why I'm not using any cutters, because I haven't got any cutters that are thin enough to do anything like that. So no longer than that for the French lavender. For the normal lavender, that's a bit bigger, so you can start off with a slightly bigger piece of paste like that. Get another wire, into your sausage of paste, bring it up out the top like that, and then roll that up your wire. I'll show you the leaves that I've made in a minute so you can see what I mean. Some of them I've already coloured and some I haven't. That's a bit too long, so I'll just take some of that paste off there So we'll take it off from there. And then because I've swatched my paste, I'll just re-roll that. So you can see the difference in the different leaves. For the normal other lavenders, for the longer leaves, and for the French lavender, it's a short one. Right, so we'll just get rid of that. And then what I've done here, I'm using a rose leaf verner for this. So first of all, with the back of your verner onto your paste and give it a good press. Same with both of them, like that. And then that goes into your rose leaf verner up the centre, top on, give it a good press. You can't really see the veins, but it just makes it look a bit more realistic if you do this. And then I'm going to curve the wire back and then go up and shape the leaf, bring it to a point at the top there. Then you can just lay that on some foam, probably on its side, and leave that to dry. Then you do the same thing again with the small one. Into your verner. When you look at the leaves, actually you can't really see the veining on them. I'm just doing this just for a bit of effect. Give that a bit of a curve back. And do the same thing as you did with the longer one. So that's like that. So we'll put that to one side to dry. Right, so once you've done that, then you can colour your leaves. Now I have got a bit of powder left on here, so I can't find my pot of powder. I've left one leaf to colour. I haven't done the short ones, but that one's just bent a bit more back than I wanted it to. So just get some of this powder onto my brush and dust all down the leaf with this. If your leaves go a bit out of shape, it doesn't really matter, because when you look in the garden, nothing's perfect at all. They get battered about with the wind and all sorts. Over the back without putting any more powder on, so you've just got a lighter back, which is the same with majority of leaves. It's very rare that they're darker on the back, like they are on the front. And then you just pop those to one side. With these, I'm not going to use any glazes or anything like that, because they're not shiny leaves. So what you can do when you finish the whole of your lavender is just to steam the whole lot to set your colours and let it dry. Right, so that's all your components made. So if I bring my piece of foam down here with all my bits and pieces on it, I'm just going to tilt my camera up a bit this way so that you can see what I'm doing and when I start putting these together. And I've just dropped one off there. Here we are. And the wire that I put a hook in, I didn't need a hook in that one. That was the one I had on one side to tape all my pieces onto. This is a 24 gauge wire that I'm using here. Now I just need to find some green stem text, some dark green. I should have some on here somewhere to find what I've done with it. Can't find it, so I'll use the lighter stem text. The colour doesn't really matter, but I mean, if you're doing it yourself, you can do it whatever colour you want. Get my little machine to cut my tape. Anybody's watching for the first time, this is made by Gem. So if you find anybody that sells PME and Gem products, they're both made by the same firm. PME took them over a few years ago. So if you can get one of these, they come in really. There are other ones on the market, but the one I'm using is a Gem one, and it uses normal razor blades to cut the tape. Oops. and I dropped it. And my blade must be getting dull because it hasn't cut through properly, so I'm just going to do that again. It does stick to itself, so you just have to watch that. Because when you stretch it, that releases the glue, which is how it works. I mean, if you're in other countries, you might not be able to get Stemtex, but if you can try and find something similar, it's like a crepe paper type tape, and it's impregnated with glue, so that when you stretch it, it releases the glue. That's better, I think. Yes, much better. There we are. Get rid of that. Right, so if you get your wire that you're going to tape it onto, start it off on the top. First of all, you need to find out which is your stickiest side, which is that one, so I'll turn that over. Wrap that round your wire, and nip it in with your nail to make sure you've got that tight onto the wire, and then just give it a twist like that. So that's now firmly attached to the wire. I'm going to find one of my smaller buds and put that at the top. So this is your first one that you're going to put in. And then with your tape at an angle, roll it between your finger and your first finger and your thumb. Roll it down so you've got a gap there. So what you need to do now is you need to test one of the buds against that bud you just put on, and that head wants to come at the base of that one you've just put in. So your first one in, and then start adding all your others. If they do vary a bit in size, just keep it so that all your heads are at a level with each of the other buds, like that. Now on the first row I've got 4 on there. I could probably get 5 on, but I'm just going to go down a bit, and then I'm going to put 5 in. So it's a little bit narrower at the top. That's why I've put less in. And then add your next one. So again, same thing. The top of your bud wants to be at the base of the layer above. Now the ones with the flowers on, you can put here and there. You generally find on, or I found in the garden when I looked at mine, that when they've got these little flowers open, you never get more than 2 or 3 of them open at a time. So you don't need to put lots of them in, so you don't need to make loads of them. You need more buds than you do the ones with the flowers on. So you don't have to spend as much time fiddling about with those little flowers from your plunger blossoms like I showed you. Tape down a little bit further, and then put your next layer in. Now on this layer I'm going to put one of those with the flower on in as well. So I'm going to get most of my buds in and then put the flower in last, then I don't knock it. Less chance of knocking it off then. That's a bit of a smaller bud, is that one. Like I say, nothing's perfect in nature, so you don't have to be getting everything perfect. I mean, if you're doing it for a competition, that's a different thing. We'll get one with a blossom on the top. Pop that in. There we are, so that's that one in. Tape down to do another layer. Just use these here. The advantage with this is you don't have to wait for these buds to dry either, because they're only sort of like bud shapes. You you can get away with putting them in while they're still soft. So you don't have to hang around and wait like we do with a lot of flowers, waiting for things to dry before you can dust them and things like that. And I find with something like this, if you're going to colour them, which I would do afterwards, once you've got them all in, because it's a lot easier to dust this when you've got everything together, rather than dusting each individual bud and spending hours and hours working on it. Right, I'm just going to put one more layer in with another flower in. I'm only going to put a couple in here. And then that'll be that. I haven't counted how many layers there are on an actual flower. But the thing is, when you're making things like this, unless, as I say, you're entering competitions, what you're aiming to do, especially if you're doing them on cakes and things like that, is aiming to make the flower look like the flower. You don't have to be botanically correct. And if anybody ever criticises your work that doesn't do flowers, just say, well, you go and do it. Let's put one of them in and then we'll put one with a flower on. Because if they're going to criticise their work, they need to know what they're talking about. You're not being judged for a competition. There we are. Put that in there, like that. And then tape down. You don't want too many layers because your stem gets really thick, and if you look at the actual flower, they are actually quite thinner, the stems on there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some leaves in. So I'm going to start off down here. Now on the actual plant, the leaves are much lower down, but if you're doing them to put on a cake, you can't put them that far down. So all you're going to do is, that's one leaf, then you get another leaf facing it, like that. Bring that round there, like that. Then if you wanted to, you can put another one in lower down. Probably around that side there. And one in there. And tape down. And then you can just open your leaves out like that. There we are. Right, so with this particular kind of lavender, there is another. I'll just pop that up there in my foam out of the way. Made exactly the same way as everything that I've shown you with all of the components. I'll just get myself another wire. Oh, I've got one down there. There we are. Now with this particular one that I'm going to show you now, that's too thin, is that? I want a thicker wire. Should have a spare one knocking about somewhere. If I got a white wire, no. It's on that now. Just got another piece of wire out. 24. So I'm just going to cut that into 3. Put those up there. You could use a white wire for this because it's going to be all covered up. Just make sure that none of it is showing when you put it all together. That's sticky on that side, so start that off at the top there. You can research this by looking online. That's what I did because a lot of my flowers were dying off. So I'm going to start off with a bud at the top there. Tape down. And put some more underneath that so that they come up just underneath the base of that. When you're putting your buds in, just keep your tape straight. It only needs to be at an angle when you're taping down to the next stage you want it at. Just be careful with these because these are still soft. I've only just made these because I didn't have enough buds before I came on camera. Right, so I'm going to tape down, but this time I'm going to tape down about that far before I put the next lot in, because on this particular variety, and I didn't look into the names of the varieties because it was one of these sites that have that photographers put their pictures on that were on. So if you want to find out what the variety names are, you probably need to go on to a gardening site where you get your plants from. Or even go to your local nursery, have a word with, if you've got any staff there that know about the plants that they're selling. That's stuck together, that's it. Put one with a flower in there. It's the same with this, you just get the odd one with an open flower sort of scattered about on these. Then again you tape down in between. You can open those out a little bit and then start another row. I haven't decided what other flowers I'm going to do yet, so if anybody's got any suggestions about any wildflowers you'd like to see, let me know. I should probably do some wild poppies. I was going to do foxglove, but I started doing it the other day and it wasn't going right, so it got squashed. You see, even people that have been doing it a long time have bad days. And I know I can do them because I've done them for a competition before today. Things just weren't going right that day. There we are, so that's the buds in. Then tape down a bit and then put some leaves in. And the leaves for this are about the same size and going in pairs, the same as they do on the other variety that I've just done. You have to keep opening your tape out a bit because when you're doing this it can get a bit squashed up. And tape all the way down to the bottom. There we are. So that's a different variety of lavender. So I'll just put that into my foam for the time being. And then we'll come back to the French lavender. Now I am going to dust these, but because these are still soft I can't dust them now. So what I would do is, the colour that I would dust them with is probably a bit of Empress Purple, just to catch the edge of the petals, and probably something a bit lighter for the top, because they are a bit lighter, the petals on the top. So I'm just going to get some more tape here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to add some leaves to this, because these flowers grow on separate stems. You don't get loads of flowers on you, so you get one stem and then loads of leaves, and they are very fine. I haven't dusted these, but as I say, I would dust those the same colour as I would with the bigger leaves, with the dark eucalyptus. If you can't get the dark eucalyptus, the eucalyptus colour will do. They're just not a sort of a greeny green type thing. Now the leaves on the French lavender do start nearer to the flower and go quite close together all the way down the stem. What I'll do is I'll wait until these have dried and then I can dust those afterwards. But this is just basically to show you how they're done. So I'm just going to go slightly below, go in between those. Bring that back round there. You tend to find that they move around, but once you've got all your leaves all taped in, then you can adjust them the way you want them to be. Because these are still soft, they're sticking to each other. That wants to be there, that wants to be there. And that wants to go in there. Turned round. The advantage of them being soft is that you can play around with them a bit. I would have cut a piece off the French lavender because I have got some that's dried, but it didn't look very nice, so I didn't bother. So they grow like that. So if you just carry on, I mean, it depends on what sort of arrangement you're doing as to how many you can get in anyway. I'm not going all the way down because we'll be here forever and it'd be too long a video for you to watch. So I'm just going to play around with those just to adjust those out. So there we are, that's the French lavender. So if I get all my other ones out, I'll just get rid of those, oops, those bits up there, and get the other ones out from there. So there you've got 3 different kinds of lavender. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to come back and see me for the next video, and don't forget to subscribe as well, because you can get notified when I upload new videos. And if you've got any comments about anything that you'd like to see, or any questions about anything that I've done, then please leave those in the comments below. And you can also tick and like any of the videos that you watch if you like what you're seeing. So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed the video. So take care, stay safe, and see you soon.